Hey everyone, it's the Koopa Man. A topic has come up a few times in my videos of deconstruction, which leaves the question as to what is deconstruction. Well, no, with how common it is as a writing trend in this day and age, very few people are unfamiliar with it. However, that doesn't mean that it isn't necessary to break it down. Deconstruction as a writing trend appeared in the modern, or I should say, postmodern era, making it fairly new. And the fact I use the term postmodern should be a massive indication of who was doing it. First conceptualized by Jacques Derrida in his 1967 book of Grammatology, yes, I'm aware that isn't a real word, deconstruction in its basis form means, well, deconstructing ideas and stories in order to shine a light of evaluation for the purpose of criticizing Western values. It should be noted that Derrida was a socialist and against age of consent laws. Just like Bosch. That isn't to say that it was a bad idea outright, only that it was an idea that was created with malicious intent by a person who should not be trusted around children. Then again, you should probably not trust your kids around anyone to the left of John Wayne regardless. How deconstruction is applied to storytelling, however, is exactly how it's said on the tin. It takes certain ideas, genres, tropes, and stories and tears them down to their most basic parts. What happens next either goes one of two ways. Either it's given the light of, quote, realism, such as, how would this story, trope, or genre play out if it was real life? This is why a large number of deconstructionist works are gritty, edgy, cynical, and quote-unquote more realistic. It's part and parcel with the practice. Otherwise, the story will be, against Derrida's wishes, examined on why it is the way that it is, and then put back together again, stronger than it was before, in a practice known as reconstruction. Reconstruction happens far less often than deconstruction on its own, but when it's done, it is because the writer is far wiser than someone who shares the ideas of Derrida and knows the wisdom that is Chesterton's fence. I spoke of this allegory once before, but some ideas do bear repeating. Chesterton's fence is a simple rule of thumb that suggests you should never destroy a fence, change a rule, or alter a tradition if you do not understand why it was created in the first place. It was proposed by the Christian philosopher G.K. Chesterton, who lived around the turn of the century, the same time as Friedrich Nietzsche, who Derrida cites as one of his inspirations. A Central European leftist who misunderstood Nietzsche. Where have I seen that before? Oh yeah, him. Though that isn't to say you should never deconstruct a trope, story, character archetype, or genre, it's just that when most people do it, they do so with malicious intent. Believe it or not, there are examples out there of it being done without it being a smear job or a means of trying to get back at the writer's father. Take for example the Hey Arnold episode Helga on the Couch. Hey Arnold was, as I said before, a brilliant cartoon that's aged like a fine wine. And this episode in particular is one of the reasons why. Normally the cartoon is about a wacky cast of over-the-top characters who are in themselves archetypes, with Helga Pataki being the archetype of a bully with a crush. As such, her antics of her being mean to the other kids, including Arnold, especially Arnold actually, while secretly holding a candle for him in her heart, and the counterbalance of her home life being a little bit less than ideal, is usually played for laughs. However, in this episode we see her go to see a child psychiatrist by orders of her school, and we see a little bit of a breakdown of her life. Her parents favored her older sister, Olga, to the point of neglecting her. Her mother's an alcoholic. Her father's a bit of an asshole whose obsession with success makes him do less than moral things sometimes. Her sister is an overachiever who goes out of her way to be Little Miss Perfect, and it all wears down on poor Helga. She even went her first day at preschool all alone by herself as a toddler in the big city because her parents forgot. That was where she met the one person who was ever nice to her, Arnold. And it was because of that she's been in love with him. It's also where we see her become a bully as a means of self-defense from the mockery of the other kids, in this case, Harold Berman. Then it all clicks, why Helga is the way that she is. It's actually pretty brilliant, helped by the fact that the writers didn't do it as a means of destroying their own character, but showing the audience the realistic lens of why she's like this while still preserving the nature of the show. It does help that this episode was done by the Hey Arnold writing staff, so it was their own work they were deconstructing, rather than an outsider source like most derogatory works of deconstruction are. Another example of this being done is the Season 8 episode of The Simpsons, Homer's Enemy. In it, we're introduced to Frank Grimes, a character who's far more down to earth than most Springfielders, albeit with a hilariously tragic backstory and a seeming knack for bad luck and misfortune. He was created to be a sort of everyman who would have to deal with Homer Simpson's antics. As such, he spent the entire episode slowly growing to hate Homer, to the point where he tries to undermine him to prove that Homer is, well, a buffoon. Only to forget that he's in Springfield where everyone's almost as dumb as Homer is. The ensuing mental breakdown causes him to take his own life when he grabs some high voltage wires. This isn't even the last time they deconstructed Homer's shenanigans, as that was the whole A-plot of the Simpsons movie, where Homer's Homerness is what causes the primary source of trouble to Springfield in the movie, only for him to have to learn the world doesn't revolve around him by the end, and that other people matter as much as he does. Sure, it's a basic synopsis of the movie's A-plot, but it's a great movie and you owe it to yourself as a Simpsons fan to go and watch it. Even Star Trek Deep Space Nine can itself be considered a deconstruction of the Federation when it was thrown against a hostile force that was very capable of destroying it. The Dominion was a splash of reality over the utopia that Gene Roddenberry envisioned. They were a hostile force of religious zealots and xenophobic aliens who wanted to destroy or enslave anything that wasn't them. The pattern here is that all of these come from people who are either the direct creators of the work they're deconstructing or are closely related to the direct creators, such as DS9 being an official spin-off. The problems with deconstruction come in when someone does it to prove that they're the superior writer and the thing you like isn't all that great. Take, for example, Zack Snyder.
Never.
And to think someone who loyally follows a leftist doctrine using deconstruction to break down a pillar of Western civilization like Superman can ever be considered one of us by a bunch of culture warriors in denial is beyond me. What saddens me is that the current postmodern writer uses deconstruction like it's their only tool in their toolbox, and it always comes from an intent not to break down but to utterly destroy. Postmodernists seek to destroy the West and capitalism after all. It should be no surprise that that is the reason why they write deconstruction in the way that they do. In that sense, they're not creatives, but destroyers who seek only to eliminate that which they find in their way.
お仕事リニューアルした方がいいかもしれないね。想像の前に破壊ある。
Postmodern deconstructionists wish to destroy tropes, genres, characters, and franchises, so on and so forth, so they can rebuild in their place. And the thing they want to rebuild there is a totalitarian nightmare we already seen fail time and again throughout the 20th century. Bunch of dirty commies. But like with most half-wits, they come up with half-truths. The idea of deconstruction is useful still, despite being a tool of half-witted commies. If a writer is to understand what makes certain things work, they should have examples of that thing being broken down to its basest pieces. Like taking apart a wristwatch to see how it works. It's very mechanical engineering in that way. However, simply breaking the wristwatch by, say, hitting it with a hammer is no better than not understanding how to put the pieces back together. Congratulations! You have now shattered something into pieces. Good luck reconstructing it, dumbass. No surprise, this mentality comes from idiot leftists. Well done, the anarcho-commies got what they wanted and tore down the government. Unfortunately, they have no idea how to build a government. They just wanted the current state removed because, victory?
Did it, Patrick! We saved the city! Just think what might have happened if we didn't tell everyone about the monster!
About the what?
Properly dismantling a wristwatch with the intent of putting it back together requires you to carefully remove pieces while paying attention to the order you're doing so and the underlying structure, so that when you go to put it back together, you can just do everything in reverse order and rebuild it. Obviously, undismantling a thing isn't as simple as doing everything in reverse, but that's the principle. That is why the hard part comes in understanding what each piece does, where it goes, and how to put it back together. Hence why without reconstruction, all deconstruction will ever be is destruction. Anyway, that's about all for today. I could keep this going, but I think I made my point, and I think I can make a whole video about reconstruction. This has been the Koopa Man. If you liked the video, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to my channel, as it's helpful with YouTube's algorithms that make it hard for smaller creators to gain a foothold. In that sense, I'd also like to ask you to discuss the concept of deconstruction in the comments as well. Comments too help me with the algorithm. Anyway, that was my deconstruction on my new outro. Until next time, game on.